Hi everyone, welcome to your first Tuesday's Thoughts video for August 25th, 2020. In this video, we are going to do a fairly basic image analysis of two ads in order to prepare you for this unit, which will get more comprehensive in the coming weeks. But we'll just keep it fairly simple for now and focus on rhetorical appeals and visual organization. So, what is visual analysis and why do we do it in a composition class? Well, first off, because our culture is bombarded with images on a 24/7 basis. And even those who rely on image descriptions can conjure up visuals and often respond more strongly to them than to purely text-based compositions. And an image is a composition in and of itself. As Dr. Wood explained in his video, anything can be a text. Anything can be a composition. A tweet is a text. An ad is a composition. Tweets and ads have intent. They utilize rhetorical appeals and they have an intended audience, just like texts. All text, whether visual or verbal, present ideas or claims. Now, advertisements, which we're going to be looking at, they're generally not subtle about the claims they make. Hey, they're trying to sell you something. And they're not just trying to sell you the product that they're advertising, but we'll get to a little bit more about that later. Other images, such as paintings, film posters, or magazine covers, may be more subtle in their approaches, but they are also attempting to convey a message and get the viewer to believe something. And we'll briefly look at an image on the next slide. Okay, so if you've watched the other videos by now, which you should have some idea of something we like to call rhetorical appeals. Just a quick review, those are ethos, which is the appeal to credibility, logos, which is the appeal to facts, logic, and intellect, and pathos, which is the appeal to emotion. As we'll discuss in subsequent classes and videos, these appeals intersect. I tend to think pathos is at the foundation of every rhetorical appeal, but that's me, I'm very emotional. A fourth appeal is called kairos, and it has to do with the timeliness of any given text. You're going to be considering all these things when you analyze an image. You're also going to consider what the message or purpose is being communicated through the image. Who do you think the intended audience is? What effect that image might have on that intended audience? What other elements, and we'll get to this more as the semester progresses, as this unit progresses, what other elements, like design elements, are being used to further develop purpose or reach the audience? And this one's my favorite. How is the image commenting on social, political, or historical situations? You're probably familiar with this image at least a little bit. You probably know it's a painting by Norman Rockwell. Quick and dirty, no Googling allowed analysis of this image. How do you think this image is commenting on the social, political, and historical situation? What's going on here in this? And you don't have to, just start thinking about it. We're going to take a look at this in class together when we have more time and can actually hit the Google together. Because, it's a simple image, but it's a little bit more complicated than the ads we're going to look into. So, so just take a look at that and think about how is this commenting on, the social, political, and historical situation? What do you think he's trying to communicate here? And who do you think the intended audience might be? Okay, so here we have a very sexist ad from the early 1970s. We have what appears to be a cautionary tale for being shaped like a pear, at least if you are a woman. Remember when I said advertisements aren't just trying to sell you a product? They are also trying to sell you a lifestyle. Or at least women, in this case, who we can assume to be the primary intended audience. So they're kind of trying to sell women as what? Sex goddesses? Attractiveness? And how are they trying to sell women on this lifestyle as an ostensible sex goddess? So let's look at the rhetorical appeals. It's pretty clear from the image of the pear and the text across it that the first appeal being utilized is pathos. So what emotion is being exploited? Fear, right? Well, fear and shame, really. This whole no shape for a girl thing is some pretty body-shaming stuff. And notice, though, that Warner's doesn't even pretend that this shape is natural. Consider the name the Little Fibber Bra. So what should women be afraid of here? Well, let's consider the historical context. Because this ad is from the very beginning of the feminist movement, we can probably guess that Warner's is trying to scare women into reshaping their bodies so they don't end up unmarried and alone. You know, Sex and the Single Girl was a thing, but Sex in the City wasn't, and people were still kind of prudes back then. And people were also still pretty racist. It's not an accident that this woman below in the ad is white and blonde. And we'll get more into this later in the semester, but female sexuality was always considered very threatening, and doubly so if you were a woman of color. So what are some other elements you notice about this ad? Who do you think the secondary audience might be? I'll tell you one big thing I noticed, and this is true of pretty much all advertising. This model would look the way we're told we're supposed to look even without the girdle and bra. So yeah, big, fairly obvious lie there. This product is not going to get you to look like the model, but, you know, keep trying and keep buying our product. Okay, so the second image we're going to look at is this poster from Silence of the Lambs, and that holds a special place in my heart because my dad's cousin's old house was featured in the movie as the place where Clarice Starling found Buffalo Bill. I'm not kidding, I'm not making that up. Anyway, let us pretend we have already dissected this ad for rhetorical appeals and historical context and just look at questions of organization. When we talk about organization, we're looking at how the various elements are arranged on a page. So we've got Clarice's eyes. We've got that moth in front of her face. We've got her face. We've got kind of the fuzzy background going on here. Let's just start with things like focal points. Focal points, you know, most of you probably figure out what they are if you don't already know. But those are those elements to which our eyes keep returning. So what's the focal point of this ad? I actually think we've got two here. I think we've got the moth, and we have Clarice's eyes. So what do you think those focal points represent? Well, if you've seen the movie, and even if you hadn't, yet again, placing those eyes front and center, and that moth over her mouth, really highlights Clarice's fear. And I think it also highlights genre. This is pretty clearly going to be a horror film, not a rom-com. As for the bug over the mouth, those of you who have seen the movie can think about the significance of that and why it's so creepy. I won't spoil it for any of you who haven't. So how about the background and harmony of the elements? So as you can see, we've got Clarice with her white face kind of softly dissolving into a black background like a ghost. And this also indicates not just that we're going to see a horror movie, but the type of horror movie that we're going to see. You know, it's going to be a psychological thriller. It's going to be a lot more subtler than, like, Friday the 13th, with all due respect to that franchise. But, like, the colors aren't just complementary. They're all kind of one and the same, and they melt into each other, which kind of gives this whole, like, you know, Clarice in the mist, and, you know, if you've seen the movie, you will notice it is cloudy most of the time, as it is in that part of West Virginia where they're holding Buffalo Bill and Dr. Lecter. But whatever. When it comes to the point of view of an image, I'm not entirely sure all images have a point of view. I would tend to think this one has something of a point of view, which, if you are an art major, you might be familiar with. And we're definitely going to talk about this in the semester, later on in the semester. This is a good image to kind of think about, like, images of power, images of, like, women and gender and power. Because she's afraid, right? And we're looking at her fear. We're looking at those big eyes. We're looking at that mouth, that moth blocking her mouth. I kind of think, like, this is something like, this is something that we call the male gaze. And it's not done in a way that's, like, kind of like looking at it like, you know, oh, this picture is for guys to gawk at. But it's kind of like, subverting that idea. I don't know. It's really weird, and I think I'm kind of getting a little bit too complicated for now. But Google's your friend, and if you want to look up male gaze, do it, and we will talk about it more later in the semester. Okay, so that is enough of me for this video, and I think it got a little more complicated than I intended it to do. So if this video really confuses you, and I've just gone totally overboard, please email me, and I will clear things up. And we will talk some, we will keep talking about visual analysis, and we'll do more and more of these together. And thank you for watching, and I will see you later this week.